Hello everyone, my name is RAINEY, welcome to another Hearst Boys segment. You've probably seen like 1,000,001 videos on this already because, you know, day job YouTubers are like clockwork. Like, these people do not sleep and they will pump out a video like this. Not me, however. I have a son and a job, but I got to it when I got to it. And today we're going to talk about the whole virtual console thing with Nintendo. Now, Nintendo doesn't understand the internet. They never have. Okay, Nintendo announced their online service that's coming to the Switch in September, costing $20 a year, with 20 NES games available at launch. They announced 10 so far, but of the 10, people only really give a about like 2 or 3 at most. But with that came the announcement that they have no plans to bring the virtual console to the Nintendo Switch, which brings me right into my point. Nintendo doesn't understand the internet. If there's one thing Nintendo has always done right, it's make games. Nintendo has been great at making video games since there were video games. Every single one of their mainstay mascots sells in abundance with the release of any new title. Mario, Zelda, Kirby, Donkey Kong, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Metroid not so much, but more recently Splatoon have sold and always sell well beyond their expectations. When it comes to making and selling games, Nintendo has perfected the craft. But there are two areas where Nintendo always seems to underperform: third-party relations and the internet. Now, if you know anything about Nintendo, you know that they do not play well with others, okay? At all. From lockout chips in the 80s, demonetizing YouTube videos that display their content, horrible relationships with like third-party developers. But the Switch presented a means to reconcile this notion that Nintendo was a members-only kind of club. So before launch, most of the general public had a pretty good feeling about the Switch, right? It was a console handheld hybrid, a chance to bridge the gap between, Nintendo and their, indie developers. It was opening the door for new online capabilities. After the Wii U failure, we were pretty much all collectively under the impression that Nintendo was on the right track, right? Yeah, until we saw the pitiful excuse for an eShop, the lack of online, the shitty mobile app, the plain user interface, the ass-grade internal storage, and basically that it was missing everything that every other console developer and manufacturer had managed to figure out how to do half decently like 8 years ago. But we had hope. We had hope because one day, those sweet, sweet classic titles from the Virtual Console would come to the Switch. It only makes sense, right? Wrong, you bozo. It's not coming to the Switch, okay? Virtual Console is not coming. It ain't coming. It's never coming. It's been a year already and we ain't got it yet, okay? And if that face from Nintendo said they got no plans for it, then guess what? It's never gonna happen. And you get this new whether you like it or not. Now, the problem is not the new idea, because if anything, new ideas present an opportunity to learn from the success or failure of that idea, right? This idea being the Switch Online store. That's the new idea that they're trying to push, right? The problem, however, is Nintendo's incessant need to try and fix what isn't broken. It makes way more sense to tie any given player's purchases to an account they can access via login, as opposed to the console on which they bought it. If they did that, I wouldn't be making this video. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you guys, and nobody would be outraged. The Wii Shop is shutting down in 2019, taking like well over 200 titles with it, leaving us with the much less impressive Wii U Virtual Console for who knows how much longer. And I know they're saying that you can transfer your stuff over, to the Wii U. But then what happens when the Wii U Virtual Console shuts down eventually? What happens then? Because as far as I'm concerned, like I said, they have no plans to add the Virtual Console, and even if they did, it's not like your purchases or your saves could be transferred over, because they don't have a means of doing that yet. So when it eventually does kick the bucket, right, the Wii U Virtual Store or Virtual Console, then what? If there are no plans to bring it to the Switch, what'll happen when the Wii U shop eventually shuts down? But it seems to me like Nintendo has been so successful and made so much money that they just like to make things more difficult for themselves, because it's been so long since they felt the heat of any competition or felt any range of any emotion in general. Whether this news regarding Virtual Console is a good or bad thing is subjective. right? But Nintendo is objectively bad at internet. Virtual Console wasn't perfect, but it worked, as far as the Wii version is concerned. The much less impressive Wii U version made major missteps, but at least all your classic titles were under one account where it's all accessible at all times, right? So you take this, you add the nuance of a hybrid console, right? And then it sounds like the Switch is perfect for it. The money basically makes itself. Unless you want to completely that idea in the ear canal and shoehorn this new in here. It just doesn't make sense. Like, why? You don't need to 86 the old formula in favor of a new one. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of space for both to flourish, especially since one already worked before and the other is a gamble at this point because no one knows what's going on, right? Because Nintendo has, again, always been bad at internet. No matter how out of their way people have to go, people will get what they want, okay? And that includes all the titles from the Virtual Console. People were already jailbreaking their Switches, and I honestly highly doubt that anything is going to stop them from getting the games they want, whether they're on Virtual Console or not. For a company that hates piracy and hates copyright and all this other stuff, you would think that they would take preventative measures. Okay, look, I know I've been kind of harsh about this up until this point, but it's not all bad, okay? Nintendo doesn't understand internet up until this point, though. It's not all bad, and this could end up working in our favor. $20 a year for an online service on Nintendo is less than half of what Sony and Microsoft are charging for a yearly membership on their respective services. So as far as I'm concerned, maybe Switch Online isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's a step in the right direction after all. You know, because $20 a year to access a plethora of games sounds like a deal to me. It's much more likely, though, that it's going to work like PSN or Xbox Live Gold or like, PlayStation Plus, stuff like that, where the membership just gives you access to those titles. Even then, it kind of seems like a slap in the face because Virtual Console gave us that already, just without charging us $20 to get through the door, basically. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like there are more cons than pros to this, and I'm just having a hard time following the logic here. I'm wondering if it's gonna be Switch Online for all their old titles and then eShop for everything else, because all the games are licensed by Nintendo. So like, how's that? And if I don't have a Switch Online account, will I still be able to access the eShop? And if I'm on the eShop, will I be able to buy the games that are supposedly free with the subscription? These are questions and scenarios that are painfully avoidable, but it's not in Nintendo's nature to understand how the internet works. Which brings me to the many reasons why this sucks. And again, the main reason being that Nintendo just didn't need to retcon their entire image on all fronts for this new console. Like every YouTuber with half a brain and a clickbait title, no plans could very well mean just that. There's no plans to bring the Virtual Console to the Switch. Okay, fine. I understand that in the sense that maybe they're focusing on their new service as opposed to taking the time and effort and spending the resources on porting the Virtual Console onto the Switch. But I just don't see how one would affect the other. With a company as big and as old as Nintendo, I just don't see how putting Virtual Console on the Switch would be such a detriment. I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe they're focused on their new service. Virtual Console's not a priority right now. And that's understandable, you know? I don't like it, but I get it. Or they could just mean that it won't be called Virtual Console anymore, and that all their stuff will be available on their new service. If that's the case, then it was horribly worded in that press release with Kotaku. Still, though, even if it's not called Virtual Console outright, omitting the entire Virtual Console library from the Switch seems like taking 99 steps back after taking 100 steps forward. Paying $5 for The Legend of Zelda isn't going to stop me from paying $20 for Celeste. There's way more than enough eShop space for both of them. Or is it like Switch Online space? Look, the appeal of portability alone is another reason why this is a huge slap in the face to a lot of people. Okay, because Skyrim, LA Noire, Bayonetta 1 and 2, all these titles are old as shit, yet people have no problem paying for them on this new system in 2018 for the prospect of portability. Put it like this, Skyrim came out in 2011 and has seen multiple re-releases since then, and people are still paying a full $60 for this title, all because it's portable. The Legend of Zelda was $50 back in 1987. It came out again for the SNES around the same price almost a decade later. It came out again in the collector's edition for the GameCube in 2003. 6 months later, classic NES series The Legend of Zelda came out for the GBA, retailing around $30. Then it came out for the Virtual Console in 2006 for $5, and then it came out again as part of the NES Mini, which retailed for like $70 or $80, I don't remember. My point is that I'm pretty sure that there are collectors, there are gamers who have been playing since the first one who have no problem paying for it again and again and again and again with every release. So to just completely shut out a whole library of over 200 games that people wouldn't hesitate to buy again if they had to, just doesn't seem like the right business move to me. As far as I know, and what I know isn't much because I'm not a game developer and I don't work at Nintendo, what I do know as a consumer is that porting out digital versions of first-party 20-year-old software to an online service seems 5,000 fathoms easier than ousting the old stuff, shutting down the new service, making a new service only for some of the games that were on the old service to be made available periodically over time, and release the same stuff you already owned on a service you already paid for. Nintendo doesn't understand.